Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Okita Souji's route, and I think this episode we might have his first bad ending. Not quite sure how close we are to it, but I think it's going to be in this episode. At the moment, we are visiting our old house to see if our father left some kind of notes regarding Fury so we can figure out if we can help Okita heal. Let us see. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. I hadn't seen it in years, but I didn't have time to be nostalgic. Nerves made me tense and jumpy. Would we even find anything? The air inside was dusty and stale. Doesn't look like anyone's been here lately. Then my father hadn't returned. I felt both disappointment and relief well up within me. I know where he would have kept his research data. Let's start with his desk. Right. We spent the better part of several hours looking through every corner of the house for anything about Furies, but the price of being a Fury is life itself. What we did find was hardly good news. What do you mean? I turned to look at the notes Yamazaki was reading. The water of life revitalizes the body, but there is a limit to the human body's healing power. A limit? It looks like the limit isn't set in stone. Probably depends on the individual. But still, his face was pale. We made a horrible mistake. From what it says here, using the powers of a Fury uses up your... I guess you could say, it uses up your future. You mean... I swallowed. Eventually they'll use it up? That doesn't really make any sense. Yamazaki closed his eyes. Yeah. They use up in a few minutes what it would take a normal human years to use. Oh no! Then, how long did Okita have? When he'd chosen to drink the water of life, he'd signed away his future. No. I didn't think his decision had been wrong. As a Fury, he'd been able to save people who would otherwise surely have died. But Okita... Calm down, Yukimura. We need to read this. We barely know anything about the Furies. How long did it take us to figure out Okita wasn't healing because of the silver bullets? Your father's notes might help us prevent things like that. Yes, you're right. If we were going to save Okita, we needed as much information as we could find, no matter how unpleasant it was. Anyone who became a Fury gained incredible powers, but those powers put a great strain on their body. And it's that strain that causes the Furies to go insane when they smell blood. If they get bloodlust, it gets even worse. They'll have episodes more and more frequently, and eventually the desire for blood will drive them insane. The more we found, the lower our spirits fell, until at last we uncovered something that gave us hope. There is a way to suppress the Fury's thirst for blood. What? Yes! One of the many reams of notes my father left behind detailed a medicine that could suppress the bloodlust. But, do you think you can make it? I nodded. Before I left, I used to help my father with his work. I should be able to make it using ingredients he left behind here. Yamazaki let out a breath he probably hadn't realized he'd been holding. Alright, if I can do anything to help, let me know. Thank you. I guess it's going to take a while. Together, Yamazaki and I were able to prepare several doses of the medicine. Unfortunately, we hadn't learned anything about how we might heal Okita's wounds. It's getting pretty late. By the time we left the house, the sunset had already dyed the sky blood red. Still, we had the medicine. That was something at least. Okita's not even having bloodlust, though. We should be back before it gets dark. Come on. He'd only taken a single step when it happened. What? A shadow appeared from nowhere, slamming into Yamazaki and knocking him to the ground. Yamazaki? I ran toward him, but as the shadow turned to face me, I froze in my tracks. What are you doing here? What do you think he's doing here, making your life miserable? I came to visit my darling sister. What other reason could I have? It went without saying that I couldn't trust him. I dropped into a defensive posture, and Kaoru pantomimed an expression of exaggerated sadness and surprise. Something wrong? Are you mad that I hit him? He gestured at Yamazaki, lying still on the ground. It's not very nice to just punch someone out of nowhere. He shrugged. I just wanted a little time alone with my dearest sister. Something tells me he just wouldn't understand, even if I asked him politely. He was right. There was no way Yamazaki would have done anything Kaoru asked him to, but still, I thought it might make you sad if I killed him, so I just put the young man to sleep for a bit. Wouldn't you have wanted to kill him if it made me sad? Was I bad? Should I have killed him instead? He tilted his head, a strange smile twisting his lips. It's bad to hit people, but it's worse to kill them. And the world's just such a rosy place, isn't it? How dare I sully it? He chuckled to himself. Oh, by the way, how's your Okita doing? Dead yet? Stop it! Kaoru's eyebrows shot up and his grin widened. Oh, I'm only kidding. Calm down. After all, he's a fury. He wouldn't die that easily. Although, considering how much pain he's in, I bet he wishes he was dead. Kaoru! The angrier I got, the wider his grin stretched. Pretty soon, poor little Okita is going to turn into a monster. All he'll want to do is drink blood. That's not true! We had the medicine. With that, we could control his bloodlust. Okita wouldn't become a monster. Oh, been at old man Kodo's notes, have you? Did you find that medicine of his? My heart fell. Of course you did. Excellent work. But you should know that stuff only works for a short time, and it can't suppress the bloodlust forever. What? I started to cry out, but bit my lip to hold it in. If the gunshot wounds don't heal soon, then I'll run out of life. And once that happens, it's bye-bye, Okita. That's not going to happen. Oh, he might still look like Okita, but there won't be anything left of him in there. He threw back his head and laughed. I didn't know what to think. There was no reason to trust him, but if he was telling the truth... Okita... I wanted to believe he'd be alright, but if I was honest with myself, I had no reason to think he would be, apart from hope. Would you like to know how to save Okita? How could we possibly trust whatever you say? What? I felt my eyes go wide. You just need to give him some demon blood. Human blood won't do anything for him, but ours is... different. And remember, quality, not quantity. Half-breeds won't do much for him, but the blood of a pure-blood demon. Then that meant... if I give him my blood, that will help him recover? Exactly. Can't I just grab you and let him eat you? He nodded, oddly satisfied. You and I don't get the bloodlust like those creatures, but our injuries heal just as fast. Well, shouldn't they heal faster? If you give your blood to him, he can share that ability. He'll heal faster, so he won't go crazy over blood. That's what you're saying? He smirked. Well, you're more perceptive than I thought. Yes, the gunshot wounds will heal, and Okita will keep his mind. I'd call that win-win, wouldn't you? But what's the catch? Yes, but... It sounded too good to be true. Would it really be that easy? Are you telling the truth? Kaoru looked shocked. Oh, don't pretend. Is it gonna have to be like all my blood? You would doubt your own brother? I don't even know you! After all he'd done, I could hardly trust him. Well, it's your choice. You can believe me or not. Up to you. Grab him, Chizuru! Tie him up and drag him to Okita! Well, I got to see you look like a fool, and that's enough for me. I'll just leave before he wakes up. With one last satisfied grin, Kaoru turned and walked away. I watched his back and thought of 1,000 different things to yell after him, but said none of them. Then at last, after he had finally disappeared... Ugh. Are you alright? Yamazaki clambered to his feet immediately, then waved for a moment, blinking. Yeah, I'm fine. Can you tell me what just happened? Sure. Kaoru had been the one to hit him, I explained, so that he could talk to me alone. I laid out what Kaoru had told me about the Furies, and how it seemed almost too good to be true. At a question from Yamazaki, I reassured him that Kaoru hadn't hurt me, and he seemed to relax a little. Once Yamazaki felt steady, We headed back to Okita and Dr. Matsumoto.
You two took your time?
He smiled as he stepped through the door, but his face was creased with worry. We were waylaid.
And Yamazaki, you seem to have developed a rather large bump on your head.
Sorry. Dr. Matsumoto frowned and proceeded to examine Yamazaki's injury. Is it bad?
He'll be fine. He just needs to rest.
He instructed Yamazaki to go to sleep and shooed him out of the room. Yamazaki didn't argue. He hadn't said anything, but from the look of the bruise, it must have hurt quite a bit.
So, did you find any of Koto's research?
I recounted what we found at my old house, both the good and the bad. I explained how Yamazaki had been hurt and what Kaoru had told me about the Furies.
I don't think he was lying, but I do wonder how much we can trust him.
He harumphed and furrowed his brow in thought.
Well, at least we've got the medicine now, so I suppose it wasn't all bad news.
Yeah. He looked up at me and smiled.
Well then, can I go now?
Of course, thank you for staying so long. I bowed.
You've got to be tired. Go to sleep early tonight, alright?
I will. Don't we have to deal with Okita? We exchanged a few more goodbyes, and then he was gone. Even though I'd promised Dr. Matsumoto I would, I hardly felt like going to sleep. Okita. His fury healing was using up his life, even as it kept him alive. I couldn't stand it. It felt like I was just watching him die.
Welcome back, Chizuru.
I turned to see him sitting up, grinning at me. You should be laying down, man. Don't be getting up. Okita, you're supposed to be resting. He shrugged.
I heard you guys talking about me. Had to see if you were saying anything bad, you know.
What? He was avoiding the subject as he always did. But there was something else. Okita, were you... I felt my stomach tighten up. Were you listening to everything we said? He smiled.
You know, if I hadn't drank the water of life, I would probably have died that day.
Okita.
Even if I hadn't died then, the tuberculosis would have killed me eventually.
His eyes were calm.
So what if a fairy's lifespan is shorter? It's still longer than what I would have got. The way I see it, I'm lucky to be alive right now.
Even as he watched his life trickle away, Okita felt no resentment for the cruel turn his fortune had taken. Perhaps it was that very attitude that made me feel so drawn to him. Please, don't give up. Even if he'd accepted that his death was close, I didn't want it to be too close. You're still alive. He grinned.
True. And as long as I'm alive, maybe I can do somebody some good. Don't worry, Chizuru. I won't give up.
Good. The future was still uncertain, but so long as Okita believed in himself, there was hope. I felt myself smiling. Anyway, I was about to tell him that, hope or not, he needed to go back to bed when... What? He doubled over in pain. Automatically, I reached out to support him. His body was trembling, and he felt like he was about to collapse. Is it your wounds? Do they hurt? He shook his head. As I watched, his hair turned white and his eyes turned red. Okita?
It's nothing. It'll pass. Soon enough.
Wait, had he felt this before? How many other times had this happened? Is this... Was it the Fury Bloodlust? How could I not have seen this when I've been by his side, like, all the time? Do you want blood?
No.
His reply was practically a shout.
I don't want that. I don't need blood. I don't want to go crazy.
His voice shook as he spoke, though whether from pain, fear, or both, I couldn't tell. We'd both seen plenty of Furies go mad with thirst for blood. But you're in so much pain.
If I lose, if I go crazy, how am I supposed to help Kondo?
What about me? Oh. Okita had drunk the water of life to make him a more effective soldier. All I wanted was to help Kondo. If he lost himself to bloodlust, he would be denied that one desire. How long have you been doing this? How horrible to be all alone, tormented by pain so great that even breathing was agony.
I'm fine. I can handle this. What kind of pussy do you think I am?
His snarl of anger turned into a moan of pain as he bent over squirming. He seemed to think he could endure through sheer force of will, but you don't look fine at all. I could hear my voice break, and tears had begun to well up in my eyes. I wrapped my arms around Okita and held him tight. Yamazaki hadn't appeared, which meant he was likely fast asleep and wouldn't be waking up anytime soon. What was I going to do? Okay, and this is where we make the decision to get the first bad ending by making him endure it. Which is so cruel! But if we went to see all the materials, we get an extra CG for this. So if we want all the CGs and we went to all the endings, then we have to do this. My poor baby. It was hard to watch him suffer, but I had to believe in him. You're really going to be okay? He nodded painfully.
It hurts a bit, but if I just tough it out, it goes away after a while.
Okita. I just hoped a while wouldn't be too long. For now, though, all I could do was hope. I stroked his back desperately, wishing that he would feel better. Okita? He didn't hear me, though. The pain had grown so intense that he had simply passed out. The following day, Okita made no mention of the previous night's events. His eyes and hair were back to their natural color, and it almost seemed as if all the pain I'd seen was my imagination. He had resisted the pain of the bloodlust on his own, without the help of medicine or my blood. Sometime later, Okita's injuries healed completely. Oh, and he's wearing a pretty new outfit. And he cut his hair. I don't like it. I mean, it's okay, but I like the guys with longer hair better.
These things are hard to move, aren't they?
I wouldn't know. I never tried them. Yamazaki shrugged, and Okita shot him a pouting look.
Alright, how stupid of me to ask you to back me up, Yamazaki.
He mumbled something under his breath, then turned to face me.
Well, what do you think, Chizuru? Do I look weird?
No, you look as beautiful as always. I was at a loss for words. He'd cut his hair much shorter, and he certainly looked different. They're very nice.
Yeah, hard to believe that when you won't look at me.
I mean, that is, Why did I feel so embarrassed? Because he's so sexy. I would have understood if our positions were reversed, but this... What was going on?
You're saying I'm so damn good looking that you've gone and fallen in love?
Yep, that's it. I nearly choked. That's not true. Don't lie to yourself, Chizuru. My cheeks felt hot enough to fry eggs, but I did my best to keep my voice calm and cool.
Yeah, guess not.
Now he looked sad. That wasn't fair. Oh, had I been too harsh in my denial? Had I actually hurt his feelings? You look very handsome. I still couldn't bring myself to meet his eyes.
I see.
Ah, that smile. When I finally looked up, I saw a triumphant smile plastered across his face. He tricked me. Whatever he looked like, he was still the same Okita inside. You done? When are we leaving? Yamazaki's voice cut through Okita's gloating, and his smile immediately disappeared.
As soon as possible.
If we're leaving, we should let Dr. Matsumoto know. After all, this is his house. It'd be pretty rude to just leave without telling him. Alright, I'll ask him to drop by tomorrow night. Yamazaki seemed to have expected both of our responses. Okita, I want the doctor to take at least one last look at you before we head out. Okita grimaced. The commander doesn't want you fighting if Matsumoto doesn't clear you for duty, got it? That was right. We were headed for battle. The shogunate had ordered the Shinsengumi to keep peace in the Kofu Castle region. Marching to Kofu would take the Shinsengumi past the town of Hino, which had once been home to Kondo and Okita. Kondo hoped they might both have a chance to visit. Hijikata, however, was against the idea.
I'll bet that son of a bitch would just love a reason to keep me out of the fight, wouldn't he?
I couldn't bear to stay quiet any longer. I think you're wrong. Hijikata's only worried about you.
Really?
His eyes narrowed as he looked at me. Don't doubt me. I know what everybody's number is.
Well, then why the hell's he taking Kondo off to battle? Hijikata was the one who got him shot in the first place. He knows he messed up, and now he doesn't have the balls to face me.
Okita's eyes burned with a cold anger. Let it go, man, let it go. It was Kondo's own fault. He had reasons for it, perhaps, but that didn't excuse the fact that he was acting like a child and pouting because he'd been left out. Hijikata's not like that, and you know it. He'd never let his emotions stop him from doing what had to be done. There was a harsh edge to Yamazaki's voice. If he thinks it's necessary, he'll set his emotions aside completely.
Yeah, tell me what's so necessary about taking a man who can't even lift a sword to fight.
What? Yamazaki glanced over in my direction and pursed his lips. Kondo was shot in the shoulder. He can't raise his right arm higher than his chest. My breath caught in my throat. The chance of that sort of wound healing completely was, well, it wasn't good.
Well, the only thing Hijikata gives a crap about is the Shinsengumi. He couldn't care less about Kondo. I have to go. I'm not gonna let Hijikata use him like this.
Okita tended to lose sight of reality a bit where Kondo was involved, and that often led to him being overly critical of Hijikata. In truth, though, it only illustrated just how much he cared about both of them. True to Yamazaki's word, Dr. Matsumoto came by the following day. After a short examination of Okita, he sat back and smiled with satisfaction.
You are completely healed.
Congratulations. I was thrilled. After waiting for so long, at least Okita was healthy again. He looked sideways at me and chuckled.
You are more excited than I am.
Yes, I guess so. But with good reason. At least he wouldn't have to suffer from those horrible wounds anymore. How could I not be happy?
You're not going to Kofu, huh?
He looked worried.
Are you planning to take her with you? If you don't want to, I'd be happy to take care of her.
She is coming with me. I'd rather she stays where I can keep an eye on her, you know.
Aww. I'd wanted to go with him, of course. That he'd want me to go was more than I dared to hope for. I felt my cheeks turn red.
Why are you blushing, Chizuru?
No reason.
You're not coming down with a cold, are you? I can't take you if you're sick, you know.
He was grinning, and there wasn't even a hint of genuine concern in his voice. You're mean. He only grinned wider.
I love that.
I love the guys who are teased like that. After packing up what little belongings we'd bought with us, we headed for Kofu Castle. As a fury, Okita had to wait for the sun to go down before we could leave, which meant that we were a little late to join the rest of the Shinsengumi. The Imperial Army is in a good position. Good for them, I mean. Yamazaki had returned looking slightly harried, and the news he'd bought had been bad.
Where are Kondo and Hijikata?
The chief is with the rest of our soldiers, at the Shinsengumi camp on the hillside. Hijikata has gone back to Edo to request reinforcements.
Oh, this is when things go sideways. He's what?
Okita's eyes went wide, but only for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was angry.
So, he leaves Kondo in a bad position and runs off to Edo, huh?
Yamazaki scowled. He left for Edo on the chief's orders.
Yeah, after he forced Kondo to give those orders.
Okita and Yamazaki glared at each other, jaws clenched. Stop it, both of you! This was hardly the time to be arguing. Blaming Hijikata wouldn't solve anything. You're supposed to be fighting the enemy, not each other. What is this going to accomplish? I could feel furious tears pushing at the corners of my eyes, but I swallowed them. After a long moment, Okita coughed and mumbled something, almost too quietly for me to hear.
Let's go meet up with Kondo.
Understood, Captain. And just like that, the tension between them was gone. I sighed with relief. Before you go... I knew it was you. Do you think you could play with me a little? Kaoru! Without a word, Okita moved to stand between Kaoru and myself.
I think the two of us should be enough, don't you?
Right. In the blink of an eye, Yamazaki was gone before Kaoru even had a chance to respond. Oh, did he leave you behind? I guess you're not very popular, Okita. Okita's answer was a grin.
I never liked him much anyway.
Kaoru laughed, but he made no attempt to chase after Yamazaki. After all, Yamazaki wasn't what he was here for. That was why Okita wanted Yamazaki to ignore Kaoru and leave to help Kondo and the rest of the soldiers. Yamazaki had done exactly what he'd wanted. I just came to see how you were doing. His sword hissed out of its scabbard. This battlefield positively reeks of blood. Isn't that a bit much for a fury?
Shut up.
His voice was low and dangerous, and the muscles of his face were pulled so tight I thought they might snap. Well, how about I just show you then? He let out a single high bark of laughter and launched himself toward Okita. Their swords met with a resounding clang, and they leapt apart. He'd been wounded, but it healed right away, of course. Okita was the one who'd been hurt. Okita? I ran toward him. His sword was covered in thick red blood. Chizuru. He looked at me, a grin spreading across his face. So, you didn't give him any blood, even after I was kind enough to share my wisdom with you. Huh? I wanted to ask him what he'd meant, but before I could speak, Okita began to change. His hair shone silver, and his eyes turned a red more deep and violent than the blood on his sword. Okita? He looked straight at me, a smile on his face. I almost didn't see it when the sword leapt toward my chest. Oh! The fury madness had taken him, and now there was only one thought on what remained of his mind. Blood. The Okita I'd known was gone. I'd hoped he might suffer a bit more, but it looks like he went mad a little ahead of schedule. His voice sounded so far away. If only you hadn't ignored my warning. Had I been wrong? Okita... He was still smiling as he raised his sword. Then everything was gone. Wait, I thought I was supposed to get a CG for that. Darn it. Alright, well that was bad ending number 1. Now we'll go on to good ending number 1. So we gotta load back up, and instead of making him endure it, we will give him the medicine. Yep, medicine. I did my best to stay calm. If he didn't want to drink blood, then I wanted to respect that wish as long as I could, but I couldn't just leave him in pain. Here, this medicine should suppress it. I pressed it into his hand. He'd heard my conversation with Dr. Matsumoto. I wasn't surprised to see it, but I saw his jaw clench. I don't think you're weak. I don't doubt that you can tough this out. But I can't bear to see you suffer like this. I know I'm hardly a doctor, so you might not want to take it, but it should work. I was about to begin to beg him to take it, when he simply grinned and took the packet from my hands. Good boy.
I believe in you.
His breath was labored, but his words were still gentle. With trembling hands, he raised the medicine to his mouth. If it had an effect, it wasn't immediate. Okita was still clearly in pain, his face was pale, and sweat beaded on his forehead.
I'm gonna go lay down.
Right, good. I helped him into his bed, where he passed out as his head hit the pillow. There was nothing more I could do except watch him suffer in his sleep and lament my own helplessness. And curse my brother for this all? I wasn't sure how long I sat there, but eventually the medicine seemed to take effect. His breathing grew more even, and the color started to return to his skin as his hair and eyes changed back. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to feel any better. Kaoru's warning that the medicine effect was only a temporary solution echoed through my mind. Sometime later, Okita's injuries had healed completely. Now we can probably skip through to some of the text that we read during the first bad ending. Okay, so here this time, instead of going mad and killing me, hopefully he'll be okay in this battle.
So, what's your point?
With a tiny sideways grin, Okita drew his own sword.
Well, this thing's been drenched in blood since the day I picked it up.
He leapt forward toward Kaoru, and their swords slammed into one another with a thunderous force. Both men leapt backward, eyes locked. Only then did I notice that Okita's hair had gone white, and his crimson eyes were glaring at Kaoru. You've got some balls for a fury. His tone was jeering.
I've had just about enough of your bullcrap. I think today's gonna be the day you die.
If only... Their swords met again. Wounds open up across his body, courtesy of Okita's blade. Huh, these are just scratches. A demon had the ability to heal almost instantly, and Kaoru's wounds had already begun to close.
What, you think that's all I got?
Before Kaoru had time to react, Okita struck again. And keep striking! Ugh. It wasn't that Kaoru was weak, so much as it was that Okita was so overwhelmingly powerful. His attacks came with blinding speed, and bit by bit he pushed Kaoru back. With each blow Okita landed, Kaoru only laughed harder.
You finally lose it? Or do you just get off on being hurt? Maybe both.
Okita, go for the heart or the head.
Whatever, doesn't matter. It's over for you.
Interesting. You're pretty impressive. Even with Okita's blade at his throat, Kaoru never lost his composure. It made my blood run cold. You've gotten a lot faster since the last time I saw you. Have you been drinking blood?
Is this really the time for chit-chat? I mean, you do see that I'm about half an inch from putting a sword through your neck, right?
Kaoru didn't even seem to hear him. I'm not sure if you're doing so well because you drank some blood, or if you just hate me so much that I'm bringing out the best in you, but... Either way, Okita, so long as you're a fury, you won't be able to get by without drinking blood for very long.
You don't really know when to quit. Are you that anxious to die?
His sword didn't budge. Furies get stronger every time they drink blood. But once you've had a taste, the bloodlust is harder to resist the next time, and worse the time after that. And then it's all downhill from there. The really sad part is if you don't drink blood, eventually the pain gets to be too much for you to handle. Kaoru smiled.
What are you trying to say?
His voice was practically a growl, but Kaoru only laughed. If you want to get stronger and not go mad, then you'll have to drink the blood of a demon. Oh, that would be so nice if it was true, wouldn't it? What? I felt as if I'd been hit in the chest. If? Demon or human blood is just blood. Yours won't save him. He'll just drink and drink until he goes mad. I froze, my mind reeling. That was probably exactly what Kaoru had hoped for. He leapt toward me.
Don't touch her!
But Okita wasn't fast enough. Kaoru dodged his lunge, and I felt his hands grab me. What the hell? He's making me drink the water of life? Is that what that is? He shoved the top of a small glass bottle into my mouth, and something like blood trickled out. I spit and coughed desperately, but I felt several thick drops of it slide down my throat. His mad, piercing laughter assaulted my ears. My heart pounded against the inside of my chest. Okita lashed out with his sword, aiming for Kaoru's breast. Kaoru shoved me aside and looked away from Okita.
Kaoru! Did you?
His voice shook with barely contained rage. I just thought it would be so lonely if Okita was the only fury. But it wouldn't have the same effect on me since I'm a demon, right? That wouldn't make any sense. Alright, well, I've gone on way too long here, so we'll pick that up in the next episode and see exactly what the Water of Life does to Chizuru, a pure-blooded demon. So hope to see you there in the next episode or in some of my other videos. And I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.